I strongly believe in the idea of Christians owning property. The world is better off with Christians in positions of financial strength, and cash flowing property can do just that. My friend Steve has built a substantial real estate portfolio here in New Hampshire, and now he's teaching Christian brothers to do the same. Go to consultingbycurios.com. He's got options where he coaches you through buying your first rental property or done for you options for busy people. Again, visit consultingbycurios.com. The link is in the description. All right, everybody, let's do this. It's December 5th, year of our Lord 2024. You know, I can't really watch football anymore. I've noticed this. I used to be able to watch any game, no matter what was on, no matter what teams were playing, and I would find it at least somewhat entertaining. Now I just have a hard time with it. But I don't think it's the game itself. Football is still a very good sport to play. It's a good sport to watch, depending on the context. But the NFL is just, it's unwatchable. But in any case, one thing about football that I've always enjoyed is the way that really the flow of the game really dictates how things go. In other words, you know, there's things that you do in the beginning of the game, and the only reason that you do them is not because you necessarily think it's going to be successful in the beginning of the game, but that you're looking to be successful at the end of the game when you really need it. And one of those things are these running plays where, you know, the running back gets, you know, handed the ball, and he just dives right into the pile. And, you know, he gets 1 or 2 yards. He gets 3 yards. You know what I mean? And it's just it's not a very impressive play, typically. It's one of those plays that if your offense is struggling, you're like, why are we doing this? You know what I mean? What's the point? You're only getting 2 yards, right? But the point is that the running back is basically softening up the defense, essentially. So the more, you know, he kind of runs right into the defense, runs into the pile, the more he does that, the weaker and the more tired the defense typically gets. And then by the end of the game, sometimes you really need to just get big chunks of yards on the ground. And by the end of the game, you've done this enough, you've softened them enough, you've tenderized them enough that you can break, you know, 8 yards on a carry, 10 yards on a carry, something like that, where the same play that you ran earlier in the game and you got 2 yards, now all of a sudden it's the fourth quarter, and you're breaking off big runs, chunks of yardage, and that's a strategy. You know, you do the play earlier in the game, so that you can do the same play later, and it'll be more successful. I like that. I like that because it's a long strategy. It's like it's forward looking. You know what I mean? You know, when you play Madden and stuff like that, you know, you just want to pass on every play because there's really no difference, right? But in reality, that's something that you can do that often works. And so I like that. I really like the idea of having a forward-looking strategy. And I got to be honest with you, all of these so-called smart guys, very smart. They're very smart people that are saying that the Christian nationalism movement has imploded. It's already imploded. It's over, guys. It's the end. I just don't think that they get it. All right. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, I've been saying this for a couple years now. I mean, I've been talking about Christian nationalism for probably 2-3 years. But this has always been sort of a long strategy. Now, I don't think it necessarily needs to be, you know, as long as a lot of people think it is. I don't think that, you know, 90% of people need to convert to Christianity before we can have Christian nationalism. I don't think that's how it works at all. But it's definitely not sort of an immediate thing, right? So in other words, if you don't elect a Christian nationalist, excuse me, if you don't elect a Christian nationalist president, it's not like you failed, right? This has always been sort of a time. Right now is the time to soften up the defense, right? Right now we're running these plays on the inside that they're gaining 2 yards, they're gaining a yard, they're not gaining much, But what we are doing is we're softening up the defense so that in the later stages of this game, we can take huge chunks of yardage. We can close out the game. And that's often when you need those huge chunks of yards on the ground. When you're trying to close out a game, you've got a lead and you want to run the clock. So you try to do these running plays that keep getting first downs. They're very low risk, but they also help you close out the game. And that's kind of what we're in the process of doing right now. We're trying to soften up the defense. And so, listen, we've made a lot more progress than a lot of people think. I mean, I think as far as, we're just one confirmation hearing away from essentially a Christian nationalist adjacent person being the leader of the Department of Defense. I mean, these are major things, and there's Christian nationalists that have been elected. There are people that are already elected that are embracing a lot of the same principles of Christian nationalism. There's been a lot of big-time successes, too, and that's the thing with these running plays in football. You do them early. You're not expecting to get 10 yards, but sometimes you do, and that's just a welcome bonus, right? Especially if you're playing a team like the Jets who can't tackle. So anyway, so this is the thing. I think most of the people on our side understand this, but just in case you don't, right now is the time to make slow, consistent progress. That's what you should be focused on, right? And if you pop off a big run here and there, you take your opportunities where you have them. It's as simple as that. And so you have opportunities. You live in a place where you can get elected as a Christian nationalist. You can go for it if you want to. Nothing wrong with that. And that's exactly what this game is all about. Right now, though, I mean, a lot of the work of Christian nationalism is on the micro scale. You know what I mean? We've got people that are buying land and they're creating communities that they're intending to essentially be havens for Christian nationalism. I think that's a really good idea, and that's attainable for a lot of people. But even on the more micro scale than that, just with families, right? Like, a lot of the work right now has to do with creating families. And this is difficult. Nobody's going to deny that it's difficult for single men right now to find a good, submissive wife. But if you're single and you're a guy, that is priority number one. That is how you make progress. You get married. You find a good woman. You find a submissive woman, a Christian woman that you can start a family with. That's your first priority. If you haven't done that, a lot of your energy should be devoted to that. And I'm not saying all of your energy. Obviously, you can do two different things at once, right? If you're in a place where you can be elected the sheriff of your town and you want to go for it, and you're single right now, I say go for it, right? You can do both things at once, but you need to find a wife, right? You need to find a good wife, a submissive wife to start a family with. Because here's the thing, we've got such an opportunity right now. I saw a lot of people sharing a lot of information. Even Elon Musk is sharing this kind of information about just the abysmal birth rates of Western countries, and not even Western countries, just lots of countries. There is such an opportunity here. Our opponents, our enemies, are not having babies, and then the ones that they do have, they murder. And so, it's just a huge opportunity for Christians and people who want to have a Christian nation to really populate the earth with people that think like you do. That's priority number one. If you're single, get married. And then don't only get married, but have a lot of fun with your wife and have some children. And this is the stage where I'm at. I've got 4 sons, and my 4 sons are just absolutely wonderful. What a blessing! What an honor! It's hard to believe that that God has entrusted me with 4 sons. I wrote this post on Gab more than a year ago, and it's just a picture of my son playing Little League, and he's the catcher. And in the post I said, this is something I never could have imagined doing. Coaching my own son in Little League in my 20s. I just couldn't have imagined it. I was a degenerate when I was in my 20s. I was a drunk. I would drink, probably 12 beers a night kind of thing. I used to do all kinds of drugs, cocaine. I never did marijuana. I never liked it. All kinds of drugs, all kinds of degeneracy, and just all kinds of I was black pilled. It's as simple as that. Like the ultimate black pill. And I remember I even joked with one of my friends once while I was drunk. I was like, "Hey, man, if we ever lose touch and you find out that I got married and had a family, just kill me then. Just kill me right then and there. I give you permission to kill me." That was my mindset. You know what I mean? That was my mindset. Completely selfish, self-centered. Basically, life was just to have as much degenerate fun as I could possibly have in the shortest amount of time. That's what my life was all about. Now, God saved me from all that, and that's wonderful. But at the end of the day, like God saving you and turning you away from degeneracy, that's one thing. But then following what God has for you in obedience, that's a completely other thing as well. And so very shortly after I got converted, I ended up getting married, and I dated my wife for, I don't know, 6 months maybe before I got married, something like that. And and now we have 4 sons, and it's amazing, and it's just so awesome to be able to teach and train your sons, and keeping in mind all the lessons that you've learned in life. You know what I mean? One of the things that you may not know about me, but when I was younger, I was a little bit of a pushover, a little bit of a wimp, no question about it. And my son, my oldest son, he kind of was exhibiting some of the same symptoms of that early on. And, he would fall apart if something didn't happen right. He gets hit with a ball or something like that. And I took this picture because something was so satisfying. I worked with him through all that stuff. And this day he was batting and got plunked in the head in the helmet with a pitch. And I remember thinking, man, a year ago he would have fallen apart. It would have been the end. He would have cried. We would have had to take him out of the game and stuff like that. Not this time. This time he got plunked in the helmet and he shook it off instantly and got right back in the batter's box. And this is just sports, right? I mean, so I like sports a lot, and sports, there's a lot of good things about sports. A lot of my friends don't like sports, but I think that there's a lot of value in them. But he got right back in there, and I don't even remember if he got a hit or not. It doesn't even matter. The fact that he got plunked in the helmet, stood up, and instantly got back in the batter's box was a huge win. And so this is the thing, guys. Like, Christian nationalism is not over. If you think it is, you're an idiot. Simple as that. You are an idiot. But Christian nationalism is something that we're in the process of the early stages of the football game, right? We're softening up the defense, and here's the reality of what's going to happen with my sons, God willing. This is what I work towards. This is what I pray towards. My 4 sons are being trained right now. The indoctrination is going extremely well. My 4 sons are looking at the world the way that I tell them the world is. And the way that I tell them the world is driven, informed. The foundation is in Scripture. But also, they're understanding things like propaganda at a kid level. They understand what propaganda is all about. When we're watching the Mets, the ADL commercials come on, and they ask me about them, and we talk about them in a very straightforward and realistic kind of a way. They see the political ads about all the problems in the country, both the ones on the left and ones on the right, the political ads, and we talk about them at a kid level. So my kids, God willing, I've got 4 sons so far. They're going to grow up, and they're going to be 10 times worse than I am. 10 times. Because when I became bad, of course I mean that in a funny way, that was much later in my life. I had already experienced a lot of liberal indoctrination over my life. My sons aren't going to experience even half that. And so they're going to be 10 times as effective as I am. There's so many lessons that I've learned in my life in the last 42 years that they're going to be able to benefit from. This is the stage we're at. We're softening the defense up because when my kids are older It's going to be the later stages of the game, right? It's going to be the third quarter. It's going to be the fourth quarter. And they're going to be able to move the ball a lot more effectively and freely than I ever could dream of. Christian nationalism is like that. So here's the plan, guys. If you are single and you're doing some other things, fine, that's great, but your priority has to be to start a family and to teach and train the family in the ways of I was about to say the ways of the Force, the ways of Christian nationalism. That's how it goes. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, you gotta keep this in mind. Like, yes, we take our chances now where we can, and if we win, we're grateful and we move the ball forward as much as we can. But right now, the expectation is the plays that we run are setting ourselves up for the plays in the fourth quarter. And that's something that we need to keep in mind, unless we get discouraged, lest we try to be tempted into blackpilling. Blackpilling is the enemy. That's something that we must never even entertain. Don't take one step down that road. It's all about making progress right now where you can and setting yourselves up for massive victory in the future. This is the time to build. I've been seeing a lot of people saying that, right? We've got a 4-year reprieve with Trump in the White House. I like it. It's wonderful. This is the time to start things. This is this time, if you haven't started already, this is the time to start things. This is the time to build. This is the time to set yourself up, because once you set yourself up, it's a little bit harder to be defeated in the future. And so do it now. Now is the time. In any case, I hope you found this video helpful. God bless.
Mi amor por ti.